Our Father in heaven, again, we are so grateful for opportunities. We're grateful that you've called us out of darkness into this light, and we pray that we'll have the strength and the courage to live up to the exposure that we've been given. Help us as we conduct ourselves on this facility. May those who are watching that are not of this faith be impressed to become a believer as a result of us being here. We pray for the other presenters as well, and may all of the participants be blessed. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right. Well, I thought what we'd do this afternoon to get into some details of, thank you. Some details of what you might expect when you go out into the mission field. There's a fairly typical cycle that I've seen, I've experienced when folk go into the mission field. It's sort of cyclical. And it goes a little bit like this. You arrive on fire. You know, yes, I'm a missionary. I'm out. I'm going to, do something great. And it's a fantastic experience. And I'm going where there are other missionaries who are, because they're missionaries, don't have the problems perhaps that I had with the old church members back home. They're ready for translation because they're missionaries. And then you find out that the poor little missionaries are just struggling saints like yourselves, trying to perfect these old characters of ours so we could go home. And sometimes those that come out hit the wall. It's sort of this excitement, and then you realize, wait a minute, I am in the middle of the jungle. I haven't had email in months or however long. This outhouse is not very pleasant. And if I see a bowl of rice one more time, I'm going to die. If, my wife and I went through a stage, you're like, I'd give anything for a cool salad right now, that sort of thing. So there's no refrigeration. So what we cook, we eat that day. There may be some things that will last the next day. For Sabbaths, we cook Friday afternoon, and it keeps. But when we come from church, we're right there in the dining hall because we know in a couple more hours, we'd have to throw the pot away. But it simplifies life. You don't have packed refrigerators when we go back to visit family in the States from time and time. My children, we kind of walk into the houses, and we've been gone for so long, and I could see the expressions on my kids' face. Open grandma's pantry and the refrigerator, and stuff just starts falling out, and we're all looking at each other like, wow, So there's a difference. The key to making the transition is not to lose sight of the fact that you came to serve. And that's a difficult thing, because it's a natural thing for us to go back to this notion of how I feel, or what I'm not getting, or comforts that I think I should have, or things that I need. When you lose sight of the fact that you came to serve people in the interior or students on the campus, and your own comforts or your own private time becomes secondary to serving. And another thing that happens, folk come with perhaps the intent to increase their spirituality, to connect with Jesus, which is a fantastic thing. That's wonderful. But sometimes they define that as, I'm going to have 3 hours of study time, an hour of prayer time, and then some downtime, and we start, I'm going to go through our typical days, but that sort of causes some disillusionment. I find that I'm working so much that, where's that quality time that I was supposed to spend with Jesus? And when my younger volunteers come and we sit down, because they came looking for themselves, trying to find themselves. But I tell them in the process, when we look at the life of Christ, he stole away. He had to make time to get away. But when we study his life, it was absolute service. Now he depended on the Father. He had to spend significant time in prayer. But there was prime time. When the folks started, Jesus was serving the people. And he sacrificed sleep or whatever to just go away to make that connection. And then that's what we're busy. And busyness is no excuse for personal devotion and prayer and those things. But my response to that is, you're going to have to get up a bit earlier. 4 o'clock. I'm there before the kids get up. So that's another sort of transition. Now there's some, of course, basic things that are tough for the ladies. The bathroom facilities is always a question, and I understand. I have a wife, and for 2 years or so, actually that same outhouse, we'll see it in a second. After a couple years, I came back from evangelistic meeting or something, and she had that look on her face, and I knew something. I thought my son had done something wrong. It's either my son or me that had done something wrong when we had that look. And she said, okay, 2 years I've been out in that pit. I want a toilet, And I knew there was no question, so a year later she got a toilet. So anyway, that's one of those things that, that you're going to find with the transition. The other thing that's important to understand are cultural issues. I was just talking to a brother who's from Guyana. We were chatting for a minute here, and he understands. In Guyana in particular, there are huge, deeply bedded traditions and cultures within the church and without that you'll be contending with. And wherever you go, you'll have to deal with those. In particular, in Guyana, spiritualism, voodoo, those things are deeply embedded in the folk. Superstitions. When we first started the school in the dormitories, my wife and I were wakened in the middle of the night. So the girls weren't sleeping in the dorm, and we ran over to see what happened. One of the young ladies said that an old hag bit her. And an old hag is this, basically it's a bat, a vampire, that was a human being by day and a vampire by night. And what happens is, depending on the victims, that vampire, or what's called an old hag, would come and bite that person and suck some of the blood, and eventually that person would become one. Now, I'm talking, this is a young Adventist lady, so these girls weren't sleeping because she woke up and saw a couple of marks that looked like fang bites in her arm. I was on a boat with the conference treasurer and a pastor. We were in a speedboat, and the treasurer asked, as a couple of years I was there, he said, how are things going? I said, well, we have some issues because the church is struggling with some of these basic traditions and cultures. This stuff has infiltrated the church, these superstitions. I have girls that wouldn't bathe after a certain time because they believed that the water people, because we do everything at the river, that was the particular time that the water people, the people that lived under the water, would actually apprehend them and take them away, so they wouldn't bathe. And they had sightings of mermaids, and I'm explaining this stuff to the official, and the other brother told me, this is a church leader, that, hey, yeah, well, I saw a mermaid twice, and this is the leader of the church that we're dealing with. So the young people, and it took a couple years of presenting the message to the students on the campus to get them out of these things. We had to go deep into the state of the dead. We had to deal with the sanctuary message, the 3 and what it really means to be Adventist. Because what happens, culture dictated, culture was the priority. And then secondary to culture was the faith. So they weren't Adventists first, they were Guyanese first. And by being Guyanese, and many of these traditions came through West Africa, through Haiti, through the Caribbean, and they were just embedded. Obia, the Obia man, folk were going to put curses on one another. And it debilitated people. Now, I'm not just talking about, sort of strange happenings. I'm talking young baby levitated in the yard. Demon possession is rampant. I was in the airport, and one of my students called me from her village. We had to have her go home. She was having all sorts just tormented. Kicking and screaming every night, can't sleep, collapsing. Now, she has a history of suicide and demon possession in her family. And it was scaring the other students, and she was, calling to ask if she could come back. She's 14 years old. She desperately wants to come back to school, but she knows she's struggling with this demon stuff. And as she and I were talking, I'm like, Alana, what is this thing that you're holding on to? And she started telling me these things that she has to get rid of. And she understands it, but it's so prevalent in these environments. So culturally, these are some of the things that you'll be contending with, and it's burdensome. It's a heavy weight, but you can't get discouraged, because at times you may feel, oh, I'm not making any leeway here. I'm not making any progress. But when we look back, I strongly believe that God has changed an entire generation of young people in this region where we are. They are not settling for surface stuff anymore. And it caused some issues for me. We had these young people were leaving school and going to their local churches and not appreciating these weak messages that they were receiving. And they were declaring, you got to go a bit deeper than this, because they're hearing the straight testimony. So these are some of the things that you'll encounter. In addition to that, this transition, many folk are really going through detox. You may not know it, but there are some addictions that you have. And when you come out to the jungle, you will be brought face to face with them. I don't know, it could be internet. It could be just basic communication with somebody, staying in contact. It could be food, a particular type of food. There's something that most of us, and I'm not just talking about, oh boy, I'd love a cool glass of water right now because we don't have ice. But I'm talking about folk who have come and just could not stay for more than a couple months because they just had to get back. And these, I had a family, strong, came down. They had all of the theory, health reformers, and they brought down the vegan pyramid chart and asking me about almond butter, and I was like, oh my. Oh, so Brother Warren, we're just not getting 6 servings of green leafy vegetables and 10 servings of food. I mean, this, like, wow. Well, we need to plant some more fruit trees pretty quick. But in 4 years, we'll get some mangoes if you plant it today. But we were having these things. But so theoretically, they understood it. But what they found, and these are friends of mine, so it's not derogatory. But what they found was that they thought they had what it took to go out, but they realized that it was much tougher, not just physically, but the entire atmosphere, the constant being in the constant mode of service, and in the jungles, when you go into the midst of these villages as a Seventh-day Adventist missionary or Christian, you're under a spotlight constantly. And I really appreciate it with what Brother Matt said in the worship about John the Baptist. They weren't these contentions about modesty. I mean, there was no question that John the Baptist was modest in his appearance. So they're straddling the fence or getting very close to it, and what it does is the locals, they start calling you on it right away. Whoa, wait, you're a missionary. You're an Adventist missionary. You came to this village and you are supposed to be above reproach. And you should. They're absolutely right. And some just can't take that sort of scrutiny. And they go away. I cannot take it. And that has happened quite a bit. So I don't get into the debates, and we are conservative, I guess by whomever's definition, because I don't want to get into these contentions. So our ladies, our females, skirts, we don't wear pants. Now, we could go through theological debates and all that, but that wasn't why. I just didn't want to be saying these pants are too tight. We're here to serve. And the people are looking at that sort of stuff. So that's pretty much it, and then we get folk come down, especially from North America. Well, Brother Warren, I just want to, debate this whole question of pants wearing. Well, you debate back in North America, but not in the jungle. We're not. I don't, it's not a, call it a salvation issue or whatever. I just don't want to, I don't have the time to be enforcing a dress code. So those are the sorts of things. And some are like, I can't deal with it. I can't take it. And it's something that you may want to come to grips with. Okay? Now, in Guyana, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the school, and I think most of the people, we printed tons of these things, and we have another DVD that I'll give you later for those of you who haven't gotten this one. But this one's fairly old, but it sort of gives you an idea of where we started. We, in our school, boarding academy, we charge the students tuition or whatever, we call it food money, because all of the volunteers, as a matter of fact, when you come, you're volunteer and there's no pay, there's no stipend. As a matter of fact, you pay for the privilege of coming to live in the jungle without refrigeration, without electricity and that kind of stuff. But the students pay $17 US per month. That's the school fee. It's been that way for 7 years. We're trying to reduce it. But in lieu of money, exchange of currency, we take the equivalent in food or services. So we've had young people who've paid for 5 years of high school by giving bananas or peas or greens, or their dad may cut wood, and that's what we take. We prefer doing that than cash. Very few of them have cash to exchange. So whatever the $17 US a month is equivalent in food, and somebody may come and work for a couple of days or that sort of stuff. That's how we manage the school fees. Now, God is, all we do is we buy food with it. But God somehow, He figures out how to keep us alive. Because, we do the math, and the math just does not make sense. We have no idea how God keeps doing this, but He does. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way to live, just knowing that God is taking care of us. So when you come, and I suspect some of you are coming, because I've been praying about it since this morning. If I have to lock that door and pack you up, and okay. But when you come, you're going to see poverty, probably like you've never seen it before. I mean, it's not. Guyana is not like Ethiopia with starving babies everywhere. But I've seen. I mean, there's hunger, but not on such a large scale. The average income in Guyana now, I think, is still about. I know it's about 700 U.S. per year is the average income. So it's not very much money, and the people are subsistent living. But what it does with the beauty of that country is that the folk are so open to hearing the message. They're just incredibly open to the gospel. Never have we gone to a village to evangelize or to do something spiritual and we've been turned away. Wide open. We take the students on mission trips about 3 times a year, and the last one we let the students do all of the presenting. I typically would preach and they'd support, but this time they actually did it. Normally they'll do Sabbath schools, and they filled this place. Over 200 people, I'm talking adults, every night. And these young people got up and presented. These are students, 12, 13, 14. They presented the investigative judgment. They dissected Daniel 8 and 9. They related the 3 angels' message to the sanctuary. And it was just phenomenal. And the Lord blessed their efforts. So it was a wonderful thing. So in an environment like this, you have the advantage of the undivided attention of these young people. And so I said all that to say, even though you're going to have some rough issues, most people do have rough time making that transition, the beautiful thing is that you're able to see the results of your efforts right in front of you. It's not unclear that God is working through you. People are brought to the faith right in front of you on a much larger scale than it would be, knocking on doors, sort of throwing a bunch of tracts out, on the road sort of thing. But it's real face-to-face encounters. And with that comes a clear understanding of the great controversy. The enemy is not hiding at all. And so there is warfare. You know that the enemy is trying to stop you from entering a village. You know what's going on. Recently, on this particular video, there's a brother by the name of Bob Norton. He's a pilot in Venezuela. About a month ago, I was with our students in a place called Sand Hills. We were up the river carrying bags of sand back to school because we were pouring concrete. And one of my staff came up on a speedboat, all frantic. He ran over and he said, "Warren, we just got a phone call, radio message from Georgetown. Your wife Jody was on an airplane and it crashed. And we haven't heard anything, and we got to go." And you could imagine, and my son was with me, and he was disoriented. So for 15 minutes, we found a phone and made the phone call to town. And my wife was not on the plane, but the plane was in Venezuela. It was Bob Norton. He and his wife, principal of her school there, and a couple of villagers that he was doing a medical evacuation. They went down in the jungles of Venezuela a month ago, and we haven't found them since. He's on this video. He's good friends. So it's rough. I mean, these are real battles. This is it's warfare. When Paul was talking about this stuff, the meaning of what Paul was talking about becomes real. This is not a stroll in the park. It's a wonderful adventure. It's a wonderful way to go, but we're talking about spiritual warfare that's going on. And you're going to come out great if you hang in there. If you stay the course, the Lord is going to do something great through you and for you. And He's going to get you ready. And the thing that I believe is that in some form or fashion, all of God's people are going to have to go through some great trials, some great tribulations before we are translated. We're going to have to do something more than just the typical stuff. Regular attendance at Sabbath school is good, but I don't believe it's going to be enough to get you through the final crisis. You know, we're going to have to go beyond that. And that's why I'm proposing, and I'm a strong believer in missions, in ministry. And I mean foreign missions, something that's far removed from what you're accustomed to. And if by chance, we have folk who are accustomed to living in remote areas who have moved. The brother that I was talking to is from Guyana. He came to London, and my first question, when I meet Guyanese in the States or whatever, my first question, when are you returning? And rarely do I get I'm coming next week. Because coming from that environment, when you have these nice soft cushioned chairs and air conditioning, and it is not, it's more than just a notion to go back to, no running water and those sorts of things. So those creature comforts will be magnified when you make that call. Okay? Now, before I show this video, questions about Guyana in particular, or questions about anything, any of our ministries. So I want to get into the nuts and bolts of this, because before we break up, I want to get some names and talk about some next steps. Yes?
You said you're going to talk about your daily schedule.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Why don't, that's, okay, it may be on there. A typical day, I was just telling a young man, on Monday morning, we break up and it varies from school to school, and I'll just talk about Kimbia for now. We break the students up into 4 groups. There are 4 teams, about 12 or so students on the team, and one of them is a captain. And they have a rotation. There are 4 areas. There's the kitchen, the garden, construction, and grounds. So if your group is in the kitchen for this particular week, so they spend a week in each of the areas, then at 5 o'clock you're in the kitchen preparing breakfast and lunch for the day. And, of course, as I said, there are no microwaves. Your boys are chopping the firewood. The girls are, peeling pumpkin or whatever it is. And they're cooking over an open fire for about 60 or 70 people. So they'll prepare breakfast and lunch. The others will get up at about 5:30, and we'll have joint chapel together, where the school will come together. And then at 7 o'clock we'll have breakfast. They'll clean their rooms and do those things, bathe in the river. Then we'll have chapel, and then breakfast is at 7. At 7:45, our announcements for school. 8 o'clock is class time. From 8 to 12 is academics, math, English, science, Bible, those things. We have lunch at 12 o'clock. At 12:45, we have our midday prayers. We pause and we come together and pray for 15 minutes. And then at 1 o'clock, we have another class in the afternoons. And that's typically vocational time. Girls will be food and nutrition, home management. The boys will be carpentry and mechanics. And at 3 o'clock, we all change clothes and we all go to work. Staff and students, everybody on campus work with physical labor. So staff, who's assigned to kitchen, will take the kitchen group. I have the agriculture, the farm. My wife takes the grounds, and other staff will do carpentry, doing repairs, and we work from 3 to 5. 5 o'clock is supper. 5:30 they'll go and bathe and get ready for study hall every night at 6:30 is mandatory study hall. The staff and students are there going through classwork, homework with the students from 6:30 until 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, we're back in the dorms. 8:15 to approximately 8:30 or so is devotion, evening worship. 8:45, we're asleep. And then we start all over again the next day. So it's a relatively long day, but what we find is that there's not a lot of idle time. And now the kids will, we find time, we play a little, kick a soccer ball or play. Actually, I've been enjoying playing jacks. I've been, playing jacks and jump rope. It's the stuff we used to do when we were kids, We have real fun. Our social Saturday nights, we could play jump rope and jacks and marbles, and we do it for hours and have a good time.
What's that? Shot.
Oh, it's a little ball with, y'all play jacks? Y'all? Oh, okay. Well, see, y'all are so young. Hey, man, I feel like an old man. Actually, it's these little metal 4-6-prong things. You basically throw them down and you throw up a ball and pick up one at a time without hitting the others. Yeah, it's a little kid game. But those are the sorts of things that are fun. The children, the students, they're very simple. So it doesn't take much. Now, I'm sure if there were Game Boys there, they'd want to play it. My son, who's familiar with this stuff, and I refuse to get it, he trying to explain to the kids what a Game Boy is, he's just like, okay, forget it, let's go and play. So they'll do that. On Sundays is their wash day, relax day. So we don't have any assignments and things like that. We just let them hang out and relax. The students will go home for weekends, those that are local. About 80% of the students are too far away to go home on the weekend, so they're there. We have several students whose parents have never visited the school. I was at a meeting in the deep interior near the Venezuelan border, David Gates and myself and others, and we had a couple of airplanes out there, and right at the end of our meeting, one of the villagers came over and said, we have 2 students that need to go to the school in Kimbia. We didn't know we were leaving in like 15 minutes. They're like, what do you mean? Said, we heard about the school in Kimbia. Can you take my son? The boy was 11 years old. I'd never met his parents before. His parents didn't know me. And I said, well, we're leaving in 15 minutes. Can he get ready? And he said, yeah. I said, well, his mother's somewhere working, but his dad will be coming. The little boy came with his backpack, and his dad said, oh, I'm, Devion's father. Heard about the school. Thank you for accepting my son. How much do you, I said, well, he'll be on scholarship, because they were in pretty bad shape. His story was kind of rough. And he came. And we flew to another village, and there were 3 young ladies who were headed to a public, they were Adventist, they were headed to a public boarding academy in another part of the country. And their village captain, who's also an Adventist, said, we can't send these girls here. Can you take them at the school? Now, they were packed, about to get on an airplane to go to their school. And we made the decision. We got together and said, okay, we'll take them. I can't take any more because the school's full. So we got on the radio and said, look, talk to their parents, tell them they're not going to be going to the government school near Venezuela, but we're going to fly them 3 hours to our school in Kimbia. And in 30 minutes, these 3 young ladies were going to a new school that they've never been to before. I still haven't met their parents personally, and it's been 3 years. That's the kind of faith. These folk are serious. An Adventist boarding academy. They're sending their children by faith. Yes, please. It's Advent. That's their question. You Adventist? You conservative? Now, they don't use that word, but the questions they're asking are the same questions that we're trying to avoid. Boys are not allowed to Date on the campus? No. No relationships at all. What? You know? And what if they can't wear this? No. They can't. Please take my child. The stuff that we are fussing and fighting and debating, these are the things, and not just that, many non-Adventists desperately trying to get into our schools. And those who have been around this faith for a while, and it's sad, even in the interior of Guyana, many Adventists are sending their kids to town, to Georgetown, to the city schools, because they feel that they couldn't possibly get the caliber of education that a worldly school could give. And most of them, when they get to town out of the interior, they leave the faith. So it's an incredible thing. So that's our daily schedule. Any questions? Yes.
What language do they speak?
Guyana, the national language is English. Guyana is the only English-speaking country in South America. However, Creolese is the language that they use from day to day, which is a broken English, and sometimes it gets very difficult to understand. The indigenous people there are about 4 or 5 dialects, where the Amerindians, they speak in a totally different language. It's not written, but it is I don't know how it came about, but the country speaks English. That's the formal language, and so you could communicate there. So we don't have the issues with the language barrier. Mm-hmm. Yes?
What do the missionaries teach, the student missionaries at home?
Yes, the volunteers, we have, I think, 5 traditional subjects: math, English, science. For those who are serious about being medical missionaries to go to our school when they graduate, my wife teaches human and social biology, which is similar to anatomy, for those who are prepared to do that. Then we have food and nutrition, home management, carpentry, and some mechanics. Okay. So the normal subjects: math, English, science, Bible. Mm-hmm.
Is there a curriculum that you use?
Yes. Our students at KMA, they write their, we were just talking, somebody was telling me, what's the high school, at CXC, yeah, but what is it here in England? Yes, it's the equivalent to that. So they write those subjects, to graduate or to go on to university or college. Yeah. So we have 6 of those subjects that they write. They've done well, extremely well.
What's your goal then? Because obviously you've been doing this for some time now.
Yeah.
What's your goal?
That's a good question. I wonder. Well, we've started. We have 4 schools now. We just started a new one. It's been going on for a year now, so we have about 40 students there. And I was telling somebody, just as we left, we sent some students, some graduate staff, to a new site to build a new school. My education is my goal, is to keep building schools in remote areas. Now, our schools are in areas that the conference or the government cannot get to. Places where there's no secondary school education, and places where there's not a real Adventist presence. So the goal is to use schools, education, to win souls. So we won't go where there's a government school or where there's access to a government school. So remote areas in the interior, that's the goal, at least for me, to evangelize Guyana. Okay. Right. Yes?
For volunteers, what kind of length of service do you do?
Well, we prefer a year minimum. Now, you can stay as long as you like. We prefer lifetime. Yeah, that's our preference. But if we can't get you for life, we'll take you for a year. Now, if you can't, we have young people who come, between college sessions or something, so they may come for 3 months or, a month even. that's okay. We have folk who come just to see how things. That was your son I was talking to today? Oh, yes, we were talking about Las Delicias, yeah. My daughter was there. So, you could come for a shorter period of time. It's just hard to integrate you into the rotation because we won't change the schedule if you're going to be there for 3 weeks. We won't change the schedule to accommodate your skills and that sort of thing. But it's self-supporting. We get no financing from General Conference or whatever. It's volunteers that come, they sustain themselves. So we pay stipends for Guyanese, for the locals that we have on the campus and the Bible workers that we have in the field, because it's terribly difficult. But for those of you who come from these wonderful environments, you contribute to the project to the tune of $100 per month is the cost. That's the contribution for food, and basically it's to help with the scholarships and to take care of the Bible workers and things like that. So that's what I was saying. You pay for the privilege to come and not have ice water, but it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Yes?
How difficult is to get? Do you need visas? How
Yeah, for...
how difficult is it to get?
how
long is it to get to where you are?
Yeah, I may have to have you turn off this camera here for a second. I've been there for 8 years and I still don't have a work permit. What happens is you get, when you come from, if you have a UK British passport, you don't need a visa. When you come, they will give you, I think at least the US, they'll give you 3 months. Okay, and when you come, we'll take your passport. Brother Winston James, who is the stewardship director for the conference, he's also on our board. He takes those visas and apply for long-term visa applications. And once that starts, then that's the ongoing. Yeah, it's you never get them. We don't know of anyone who's ever really gotten one of these things. But you just keep applying. Every year you say, when I left the country, the immigration officer, every time I leave, she was fussing at me. I could just stamp this and you won't be allowed. You're supposed to have it. I say, I've been applying. Please talk to your government. I keep applying. Actually, my family and I applied to be permanent residents there. For some reason they say, oh, no, you need this, and this. I'm like, I want to be a citizen here. What's the problem? But it's third world, and they have problems. But from getting into the country won't be a problem, and we just start the application process. We did get a letter saying that a particular volunteer we had was approved for a long-term visa. That person had left 2 years earlier. So that was 3 years, yes. Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to get in, it's harder to get out.
No, well, they can't keep you in the country. That's yes.
Once they take your passport away, you can't really leave.
No, they won't. They won't do that. They can't.
So my question is, what about Europeans, like European community citizens? Do they have the same difficulties in taking a visa and those things?
Yeah, it depends on the country. We have Romanians that are on our staff, four Romanians, and they have a difficult time. Romanians getting into Guyana for some reason. You're Romanian? Are you really? You have a Romanian passport?
Yes.
Oh, man. Sorry. I love those Romanians. Yeah.
So they're still there?
You have, yeah, they're still there. You know?
Still there. Sebastian.
Oh, Terrell?
Yeah,
oh, yeah, okay, Sebastian, well, he's not in Guyana, he came, yeah.
He comes every now and then. Yeah.
Right, oh, man, yeah, Sebastian was he in Vanuatu, or, oh, man, he's everywhere, yes, Sebastian came, and I have some great stories about that. But for Romanians, you have to apply for a visa in Romania, and if you're in Romania, the nearest embassy, I think, is in Spain or somewhere, and you send your passport there. And this last time, our Romanians had a fairly difficult time.
Because
getting in.
well, I've been doing building. Whatever, I can build a house top bottom. It's not a
Okay.
problem. And electrician, mechanics, but I'm more interested in nursing and to be a pilot. But I don't know.
Okay.
Do I have to get those qualifications in order to help with those things, or?
He just
No.
wants to ride the plane.
Oh, you just.
Right.
Well, you build a few houses and do some of these other things, then we'll let you in the plane.
So this is what I'm doing here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm an electrician for the moment.
All right.
I was
all right.
carpenter, kitchen fitter, tiling,
Well,
all that you want.
well, yes, I know. I'll give you my passport. I'll smuggle you in the country. Yeah, we'll get you in somehow.
Is there any way to be sponsored by
Oh, okay.
is there any way to get, to sponsor someone to sponsor me and these kind of things? Because why I wanted to approach you first, and what I want to do, I want to go to study in the mission college for 7 months, and then try to come in one of these things. Because I also I'm interested in on a mission. I consider like vital point. Like,
Well, if you sponsorship, that's something that you would work on, or we have folk who are interested, and there's some people who donate, say, hey, here's $100 for whatever, and we typically just use that for those that Bible workers or whatever, but we don't have a formal pot of gold for sponsorship. But I tell you, for those that come, long term, they don't pay $100. We just say, you take care of yourself. But for my young friends like Charlotte, they're rich, so you just but if you're interested, you and I need to talk about how to get you. If you're going to go to Mission College first, and we can talk about coming down afterwards. The aviation program is a bit tougher.
I tried to spoke to Beaver. Beaver that now is in Mongolia.
No.
Beaver and is from America, Tennessee, I think. And they run a project.
He has the helicopter in Mongolia?
Yeah, something like
Okay.
that. I'm not really sure. But I tried to get in touch with them because I was interested to get a license in order to be able to fly. And those things, because I speak various languages. I speak Spanish, Portuguese, English. I understand some Russian.
What in the world are you doing here? My.
And I know that all these gifts are given with a purpose. I want to find the purpose for them.
Well, you found it.
I'm interested in Argentina and all those things because I speak fluent Spanish and Portuguese some. I've been in Spain. I've been in school. So.
Well, we have. I'm going to put you in touch with a couple of the Romanians that we have.
I spoke to Sebastian to get in one of those things.
Sure.
But I'm interested in sponsorship, and I don't want to go the illiterate. I want to get to study, and then in order to get the proper function to help them.
Okay.
Not to just just build. I can build. I can supervise the building of because I know the whole architecture of the thing.
So why are you going to Mission College?
I want to get some education regarding evangelism and how to approach people and all those things. I know those in there, particularly, they don't really need too much theology. Or let's say, there is basic things that you can give them, without too much understanding.
Yeah. Well, here, let me. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna. What's your question to me before I?
Well, I would like to get sponsorship to get a proper education in nursing, or and how to approach people and to study those things. And is it possible? Is there any program that prepares people? It just forms them and then sends them to a mission.
Well, we have a school. It's called Bethany Medical Missionary College.
Accredited by the.
Is it?
Accredited or not?
No, it's similar, nor is Mission College or Wildwood or UT Pines.
Mission College in 7 months I want to do is accredited by the Andrews University.
Oh, you want to go to Andrews?
No, it is accredited by Andrews University.
Okay, and that means?
at the end of the day, you have a certificate that proves that you didn't spend 7 months in vain.
Ah, okay. Well,
I mean, anyway, it's not in vain. Nothing that
uh-huh.
serves God is in vain, that's for sure.
Sure. Okay. Well, I guess my question would be, we have a school, a medical mission training school that does the Bible evangelism. These folk are out. They actually started. They're building as we speak. They're building a mission house in a place called Mashavo. They've evangelized this village. Their baptisms, the conference have decided as a result of the work that they've done to build a church there. The growth has been so phenomenal. So the idea of evangelism and gaining decisions and techniques, you're applying it, you're doing it, and Brother Sissons, who's running the school, is very much skilled at how to do this stuff. So I guess my response to you would be, instead of the sponsorship, come to Guyana and you can go free to the school for 9 months there. And you'll do evangelism, the hydrotherapy, the massage therapy. His wife is a registered nurse. They have physical therapists from the States. And in the meantime, you're going to be in villages winning souls. That's there. It's not accredited by, now, okay, good. There's no piece of paper, but there are several souls that I know of that's been baptized as a result. So it's accredited, Yeah, that's and I do understand what you're saying, but the reality, there is a sort of an immediate, straightforward approach to it, and there's certainly nothing. I have Louis Torres's book, Gaining Decision, and I use it all the time. I use it with our kids when we go out into the field on approaches and how to bring people to the decision, and it's a very good book. But I tell my friends, come and do it. You want to preach? You want to teach? Come to Guyana. You can preach. Nathan is preaching now. Yes.
Do you gain hostility from the locals?
Do I get?
Hostility within the locals. I mean, you said that's all people from the Adventist is wonderful, but surely there must be some hostility there, from the locals.
Oh, yeah. For sure. A place called Maruka, about 5 or 6 years ago, I took about 15 of our students there. No Adventist presence at all, strong Catholic. As I was doing the evangelistic series in this pavilion, in the ball field, the Catholic priest walked about 60 of the villagers in front. He had a huge cross on one of the villagers' shoulders, and they paused right at the pavilion and looked up at those, because there was Catholics, some of his members that were attending, and basically intimidated them. And he went around to everyone that was attending the meetings, telling them not to go because of all of these issues. So there are hostilities from a religious perspective, because typically the villages that we're dealing with in the interior are Catholic controlled, and the priests are walking from village to village. We have two airplanes. So we're flying Bible workers around, getting there, before, and we're moving. And so we're making lots of ground, but there is hostility there from a religious perspective. We do get some opposition in other areas as well because of the approach to education that we have. Many people, when we put a school in the middle of an area that have never had a secondary school, they want the education, because we have fantastic volunteers that come and teach. They want the education, but they don't want the religion. They don't want the whole thing. Many times I've heard, why can't you just prepare my child for CXE and leave the Bible alone? When I first started the school in Kimbia, the Lutheran pastor who has the district throughout the river came to me. He's a nice guy. We're good friends. But he came and said, look, what I think we should do, since you have this Adventist school, you should open your school up on Fridays for myself to come and do a worship, and the Anglican bishop to come, and that way it'll be fair. And I said, my brother, with all due respect, you're going to confuse the children, because I spend 5 or 6 days presenting the Word according to the Bible. Then you're going to come with something else, and I can't do that. That's not it's not appropriate for the students. So you do get those sorts of things. Now there was a very strong anti-American sentiment, which surprised me. The Guyanese are very proud people, and there was this sense of, I don't know, capitalism. I don't know what the problem was, imperialism, or they were taught, that America may be right, but America was trying to take over the world, and they were arrogant, and so that's probably not far from the truth, but there was that sort of contingent. But now, after so many years, I'm Guyanese as far as they're concerned. Yeah. So when you stay, you're going to earn respect and trust. They just want to know that you're not coming there to plop the Bible upside their head so you could feel good about something. These are really good folk. So it takes some time. Yes, Mrs.
I wanted to ask, like somebody asked about visas,
Mm-hmm.
are there any health issues coming into the
there's malaria. Not where we are. 2 minutes. Okay. Not where we are, where they're digging for gold, and other places. Typhoid. We had a scare of typhoid. A couple of kids. Many of the students drink the river water, or they used to, the water from the river. So typhoid is something that tends to go around. Wait, that wasn't 2 minutes. Oh my. Okay. Okay. Time up. Yeah. There are some things that you need to be concerned about. Yeah.